All right, I think we're live, Shane. It says end broadcast. It says
Awesome.
live, 9 seconds. 9 seconds into this dude.
Nice. Did we advertise, or am I going to see any type of comments coming up or anything?
Okay, so on your right-hand side there should be comments. Can you select a comment section? There should be like 3 different sets of comments or something that you can select at the top.
Oh, yeah.
All right, sorry guys, we're a little bit late because, well, 1, this is a completely new setup. 2, I'm adult, and 3, we're coming to you live, not from anywhere near where we were before, right?
That's right. Yeah. We're about 200 miles from each other, actually.
Exactly. Yeah. The
Yeah.
previous lives always did. Tony and I would do them essentially side by side, just using the camera. So I guess that the customary thing is try to run through the name as fast as possible from the beginning to the end. All right. And so, hey, John Wilbur, Tall Garage, Uncle Squirrel, Tom Brown, Fred Schmidt, blah, 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 blah. Buck does it, Rabbit Garage, and I'm caught up. All right. So, hey, how's it going, fellas? I'm sorry this is a bit later than what it normally is. Like I said, it's kind of jumping through our butt to make this happen. But, our last live really was just me, Shane Pulido, and Tony, and it ended very abruptly.
Matter of fact, that was weird too, because he told me like that day that this is our last live, and I was just like, wow, that's crazy. So we have to keep this going.
Yeah, and definitely for really, I think the big one is just knowledge base, right? Like you're handing out free knowledge to everybody and help them correct what they got going on. The hot rodder in peril or in trouble, or who's ready to smash their carburetor with a hammer.
Right.
Yeah.
And we've all been there. Yeah. And it's crazy too, is that, neither one of us know everything, and we're going to get some things wrong, but at least we're trying. That's what we're here for. But we know a lot of just random knowledge about stupid stuff.
Yeah. Well, and so here is, everyone kind of hopefully knows who I am. But this is Mr. Shane Pulido, the guy referred to as Professor P.
Yeah.
This guy is like the smartest. I'm not going to say evil scientist, because you're not. You do, like, that's why I always say professor. You're like literally the most educated car guy I know.
I would call it the most educated idiot, I would say. I'm socially inept. I mean, we're all socially inept. That's why we're into cars. We go in the garage, and that's that.
Well, and that's why it was no surprise when Tony would say, "Oh, I'm a recluse. I'm a recluse, and I stay away from everybody." Well, and I think every car guy is kind of that same way. I mean, I'm telling you, when shit gets tough for me, I literally go to the garage and close the door, and then I don't come out until I'm like feeling better or the house is on fire.
Right.
So
for me, it's turning up the radio. I got a nice sound system in there, and I got a 55-inch TV. Man, close up the world, and I'm there.
Yeah. Well, and so to I guess first things first, what I wanted to do was I wanted to establish some ground rules. All right. So this is a live that I'm going to continue to do. Shane and I, we're going to continue to do for who knows how long. But it's because really it was a void that needed to be filled, right? It's a free education for the would-be hot rodder. It could be as novice as not knowing how to change your spark plugs, all the way up to somebody that's having problems getting the timing right on their top fuel motor, right?
Yeah,
and
exactly. Yeah.
The idea was to help that person out. But the ground rules that I want to establish is, first and foremost, what led up to this live being here, essentially between myself and Shane, is that someone did something that I felt was very unprofessional, right?
Yeah.
And professionalism goes as far as this. If you take from someone else for your own glorification, you are a turd. Okay.
Agreed. Absolutely.
And that's just the way things are. A professional person would never do that to anyone. Now, that's what's led us to where we're at today. So I'm going to establish the basic ground rules. If you come in here and you want to bash somebody, your ass is getting kicked out, right? Yeah, and I mean, I won't have any second thoughts or questions about it. We're going to kick you to the curb.
Agreed. Yeah.
The other thing is, the whole idea of the No Name Nationals was to perpetuate an event for the would-be hot rodders in the YouTube community that don't get the glorification of having a monthly print magazine or their own show, right?
Or an endless bank account, you know?
Right. Yeah, exactly. The bottomless bank account is what wrecks most of it.
Yeah.
And by doing, the unprofessional things, it takes away from the event. It takes away from the community, and it shits on everybody else, right? There's literally like 3 people that threw a fit and ruined and wrecked just about everything that myself, John Wilburn, and every other No Name 500, every other YouTube automotive enthusiast that's coming to the No Name Nationals has worked for up to this point. Okay. And it's bullshit. And if it was up to me, I'd meet you at the gate at the No Name Nationals if you even decide to show up, just to knock your head a couple of times right there in the parking lot. That's my personal opinion. But
I still don't know the whole story.
I don't know either. And no one's telling me nothing. I was surprised when the whole thing went sideways on that Saturday Live, like, hey, this is the last one. Like, you got to be kidding me. You're fucking with me, right? Like, we've been doing this for 2 years.
Yeah, right. That was a shock,
It was a shock, but like I said, this one leaves a void where I felt we can't just end it like that. It has to continue on and perpetuate. So enough about the drab and dreary things that have been happening in the past week or two.
Turn the page.
Let's get on to some tech stuff. So
and we got 2 guys here that are just kind of like the bastard stepchild of cars, so we can pretty much do whatever you need.
And you've had just about every make and model, right, Shane?
Yes, absolutely. Well, except for Fords. Fords are their own special animals. But yes, I've done everything else. Yeah, Volkswagens, Pontiacs. My brother had a Pontiac. I've done a lot of Mopars, some Chevys. But yeah, so I've done it all.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. I've had a majority of them. And once you figure out that they all kind of work the same,
they're just it's
like, it's literally like one guy figured it out, and then everybody else followed suit, and it's all pretty much the same stuff, right?
Yeah, it's all just a combination of bore, stroke, cylinder head, airflow, and so on and so forth. And they are what they are. Some have better blocks than others. Some do this, some do that better. Just is what it is. Yeah. Well, I like this screen here than when I was there with you guys, because I can actually read this, and it's really nice.
Well, and we don't have like 4,000 people in here chiming in. We got 37 viewing right now. So
hey, that's awesome.
The whole idea is to Buick Smith is out. Dallas, did you get the Pontiac Inline 6 yet? No, actually it was offered to me from up in New York State, and I would have had to go get it in New York State. And then the guy sent me pictures, and it was literally like a block and a crank that had been disassembled who knows how long ago. And to tell you the truth, that thing is so foreign to me that I would literally like to have a complete motor and then disassemble it to see how it goes together and what came from where, and identify what bolts go to what. Yeah. And I hate piecing back somebody's puzzle. It's like,
it's pain, right? I'm doing it right now. I have the 6.1 Hemi. I remember in San Diego when I had those 2 5.7s there sitting on the stand. I took those apart, put them in a little tray, and now I'm piecing together parts right now, parts and pieces. So it's just nuts and bolts. It's just a pain in the butt.
Right, for sure. And that's where it's horrible to try to figure out how somebody else's project, originally came apart or went together or anything of that nature. I hate it.
If you go onto my channel, there's actually a guy named Taylor, and he bought someone else's project, and it was running, it was driving, but it was nowhere near being correct. And this poor guy, I think I talked about it last time, but I saw him on the side of the road, towed him home. I made 2 videos to get it running. And he's a brand new father, so funds are a little tight. So
did you say it was like a 408 stroker in this thing?
Dude, it is massive, and it's got a huge cam, and I'm just looking at this thing just awestruck, like, are you kidding me? He's never even been in anything this fast before. So and he's like, yeah, I want to race my buddy in his Mustang. I looked at his buddy Mustang. I was like, you're gonna smoke him, dude. He doesn't have a chance. So,
he guy's never had a hot rod before. He's got a 408 stroke dart, right?
Yeah, the thing's easily making 550 to 600 horse easily, because it's got the Indy W2 heads. Those things. Yeah, the aluminum heads had all been ported, and single plane with a 850. It's just amazing. So yeah.
So it's your basic run of the mill, everyday, low end, low dollar, throw together budget car.
Yeah, I mean, you can,
I'm kidding, man. That thing sounds like freaking high dollar.
There's some stuff on it that's pretty high. The cylinder heads alone probably worth $3,000. I mean, that's, anytime you deal with Mopar, you pay the Mopar tax, so it's an extra, $1,000 right there. So
yeah, well, and the Buick, the Buick world is that way too, and a lot of people don't understand that. Like, if you want to do expensive stuff, pick off-brand stuff. I mean,
right?
It just starts to get. The lesser of them that were made, the more expensive it gets. So you look at the small block Chevy, there's a gajillion of them out there, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Then you move to the Ford. Well, all right. Ford's a little bit more expensive, but not by a whole lot, right?
Then there's this huge step. Let's go like, can I get it in here? Yeah, like this. And then you go to Mopars. And
right.
It's like,
well, then, and the further you go down the chain, the worse it gets. So it's like from Mopar, you go to like AMC. And then AMC's like won't even fit in the screen, right? And then from there, it's like Buick, Olds, Pontiac, Cadillac. You pick all the weird off-brand stuff, DeSoto's. You're gonna be paying through the nose.
Yeah, and that's why I like that's why I picked the Slant 6. It's just there's really not much you can really. It's a correct combination of parts to get it to run. And for me, I was trying to hypermile one. My goal was 30 miles per gallon when I was living in San Diego. So I've done it all, and I've come close, but I wasn't able to get there. Now I want something that can go 80 miles an hour down the freeway, and I'm not going to get the 30 miles per gallon. I mean, I really probably could. I'm going to put fuel injection on it, but I'm just going to.
And I tried that with that old white Ford truck. I mean, you helped me get that thing out of the field in San Diego, and it literally came out of a farmer's field in San Diego.
That was our first excursion, wasn't it? Together.
Yeah, that was
yeah. That's
and
right. That was Ramona. That was some that was like in the woods. Like if I went to a place like that here in Tennessee, I'd be expecting banjos. Remember? I mean, that was way off on the road.
Well, I remember going out there. The guy had it listed for like $2,500, and I said, "Ooh, man, can you turn it over?" "Oh no, it won't turn over." And I pulled a plug out, and water started pouring out. And I looked right at the guy. I said, "Would you take $1,000?" And he said, "Yeah, I sure would."
Sure.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was my winch's last leg. Remember that? We were hitting it with the rock to get it to go. Yeah, that was good. That was good stuff.
Yeah, when you pulled the winch out, and then you said, "I don't know if it's going to winch that big bastard up on the trailer." Like, okay, well, let's try it. I mean, worst that can happen is you got to come along, and I'll have to pull it up there.
Yeah. We've actually had a break, and we just had ratchet straps, so we had to pull like 6 inches on one side, pull 6 inches on this one, release that side. Oh man, that was a pain.
Well, so we got a couple questions flying by here. Jonathan Couchy says, "I wanted to build an international SV 392 or 345 engine, canted valve, semi-Hemi, then lighten the crank a ton, light rods, and custom pistons. Big cam, and see if I can't get it to rev. $6,000. Stock red line's 3,600.
What's the stroke on that? And what's the rod length on that? Because that's going to tell you your piston speed right off the bat. And that anything will get to $6,000, whether or not it's going to make power there really depends on that.
Yeah, and that's all dependent upon the heads and the engine and the fold and the exhaust.
Yeah, first thing I'd look at is just bore and stroke, because there's really not much you can do about that. Cylinder heads, you can port them out, but if you've got a really long stroke and a small bore like a Slant 6, it's going to be hard to get that $6,000 reliably.
Yeah, I know those international engines were really, really reliable in like the travel-alls.
Yes.
Because I remember seeing those up through the 90s, and they hadn't made them since like 79 or something, right? Whatever was the last year, it was late 70s, early 80s, and they were still running around, and most people didn't want to use them because, I mean, well, let's face it, they were not great on fuel. That was,
yeah.
I mean, it's a travel all. It's like my Suburban. No matter what, if you're getting over 10, you're winning, right? Like
winning, right? Yeah.
So Ruckwarts 1 says, "What's a set of Buick Stage 1 or Stage 2 heads worth these days?" You can get a good set of Stage 1s for about $1,200, right? And here's the thing: you can actually go make a set of Stage 1s for less than that. Just get there was no casting number difference between any of the heads. They were pulled straight off the line. And then what they did is they machined it for larger valves, but then they also clearanced the chamber around the intake valve so that it wasn't so much shrouding the valve with that big ass valve in there, right? So it went from 2-inch intake valves to 2.19, I think, intake valves. But that's the big thing is that guys you can stick a stage 1 valve in there, but they don't clearance that side of the chamber. Make sure you clearance the side of the chamber, and you can probably get a set of those done for about $900 to $1,000. Set of stage 2s, man, you're probably talking $3,000. If you're looking at factory casting stuff, they're so old and they've been on so many race engines that they're probably cracked. I just buy a set from TA.
I'll say just go TA right off the bat.
And then if you can't find a set say you don't have the cash for TA, just look around and find a used set, a quality used set. Aluminum, the good thing about aluminum is, let's say it was on a blown up motor and it kicked all 8 pistons up into the head. You can literally take those to a machine shop and have them welded up, and all of that stuff reground, reshaped.
That's
for
right.
less than the cost of a new set of heads.
That's right.
Yeah.
So Jonathan came back on that 392, said that it's a 4125 bore with a 3 5/8 stroke. That should be no problem as long as you have the head flow to get to $6,000. Even if you don't have a head flow, we can make it up with camshaft. You're going to have to add probably 20 degrees of camshaft just to get that RPM up there. But yeah, I'll see what
that actually sounds like it has a pretty good bore and stroke ratio.
It does actually. It really is good. So
that thing would. I don't know. That one has got me interested.
Yeah, me too. As soon as he saw that, I was 4125 bore. I was like, man, that's awesome right there.
Yeah, that's a huge bore.
Yeah, and short stroke. If it's got anywhere near like a 6.5-inch rod, I believe those internationals have got a really tall deck height. I believe. I'm not sure.
I don't know. That's the thing. The downfall of the Buick stuff is they have a really tall deck height, because if you ever looked at the piston on them, they got it looks like a tractor, a full skirted tractor piston. And it's added so much mass and weight. I will bet you that International is no different than that, just because it's made by International, right?
Right.
The cool thing is, you're there in Memphis where Internationals were made.
Really? I didn't know that. I'm still new to this area.
Dude, go down to the International plant. Take your machine gun with you, but you can go down the plant.
Is it really down there in Memphis?
It's literally I want to say it's Bartlett, maybe, or
Bartlett's okay, but Memphis, that's something else.
It's West Memphis is Arkansas, right?
That's right. Yeah.
What's the other area that's like the west side of Memphis, but it's not Memphis? Fraser?
I think so. I'm still, like I said, I think it's Fraser. Yeah. All right. I got a phone. I can check it
out. Ari said he's currently parked right now, avoiding hellacious traffic in lovely Costa Mesa, California, where the AR-15 was invented. It's also illegal there.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I had to do all my stuff out of
California. Repeat. Chris Cox from Northeast Dragway. Man, it's all the heavy hitters are in here tonight.
Good. Well, thank you guys all for coming. I know this is the first one. It's a little shaky, but hey, we actually have sound and we can see us, so that's good. Awesome.
Yeah. For some reason my microphone died literally the second that I hooked it up.
3 minutes before we went on.
Yeah. And then I'm looking all over for headphones so I could fill it in, and then I was like, wait, hold on, I just unplugged the mic and used the factory stuff that's on this thing.
Yeah.
So all right. So Colleen Tebow's asking, is anyone here following Steve Morris and the 8 connecting rods that disintegrated in his engine?
No, I watched the video. I watched it go down the track. It looked like it made a great pass and then just a little poof of smoke, but no, I haven't been following that. But it's a gnarly. I saw the carnage, and there was just all in the bottom.
Oh, wait, is that the fuel car that blew up at the top end?
Yeah, well, I'm not sure if it was a fuel car. I think it was just like a pro mod car or something like that. He was on a run too, and it literally just disintegrated. It was gnarly.
Let's see. Bad Tree Productions saying that's Blake. He's asking, where is the Cumberland Gap? The Cumberland Gap is right off the Cumberland Plateau, right here in Middle Tennessee. And if you head east, you'll come in between Crossville and Cookville. I think that's where the Cumberland Gap is.
The only thing I know about Middle Tennessee was those tacos that you brought me to, man. That was like a little slice of home. I got to tell you, I've been bragging to my buddies about that all week. I was just like, man, that place was awesome. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we're gonna hit it again if you ever make it over this way.
Absolutely.
Dr. Art's in the house. Dr. Art probably knows about them tacos. What, I don't even remember what that place was called. SoCali.
Yeah, SoCali tacos or so, yeah, something like that. Yeah, SoCali tacos or something. But that place is awesome. In fact, I had the carne asada, and it was actually legitimate carne asada. It's not like here where it's just like some beef that's like seasoned. No, it was legit. I
always hated like where you go. All right, so now you're actually having to live what most sailors live. When you go to San Diego and you're stationed in San Diego, you get all this awesome Mexican food, and then you get orders to like Norfolk, Virginia, and then like Mexican food. I'll go in and get a carne asada burrito, and they bring out something that's like a burrito on a plate that's smothered in like this cheese sauce.
Yeah,
and you're like, well,
what is that?
I did not order that.
No, like what is that? Yeah, take that away. I don't see that. Yeah. In 13 years grab. I'm trying to read all these things here, but this is actually there's Jonathan right here. National Harbor had to cast separate blocks from each engine, 266, 304, 345, 302, due to the difference in bore size. Blocks were the same deck heights.
Oh wow. Man. That 266 would be like a freaking tank motor.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that.
Bore of 8-foot long rod.
Right. As soon as I said 266, I was thinking, wow, that thing's got to weigh just 700 pounds.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt. Like how much cylinder walls in there? All of it, right? Like
yes, right. The cast. It's the whole cast. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
So
Duddy is a taco fan. Oh man. Well, if you guys ever make it here to Middle Tennessee, I'll have to take you out to this taco place that Shane's talking about it.
Yeah.
He moved from Southern California to Tennessee for his job. And unfortunately, I tried to explain to him the Mexican food is just not here, dude. And
no. And it's funny too, like where I work off, it's like off of Lamar right now, while Edelbrock's still kind of there. There's a place called Perkins. There's literally 5 Mexican restaurants within half a mile of each other. And there's only like 1 or 2 that are like decent. They're okay,
Yeah. Well, that's good. We got one on lockdown in Murfreesboro. So
100%.
Yeah, Ari. Well, actually, what you need to do is go. Ari's saying that he needs to start a taqueria down there. He needs to go learn all the stuff that's on the menu at, like, say, Alberto's in San Diego.
Yes.
Or what was another big one there in San Diego? MXN.
Well, there was all those Ally Pertos, Ally, Murtos. They were Bertos.
And if you want to know the truth, and Shane will back me up on this, take your time, drive down to the south side of San Diego to you go down the 805, get off at what is that? What's that highway, Shane, with all the car dealerships on it down there where you get off?
905.
Is it 905?
Yeah, the one that parallels
there's a junkyard down there called it's a pickup
Nirvana.
park.
That's Nirvana Street.
Yeah, and you go on Nirvana Way, and
that's actually Main Street. You take that down to Main, then you go all the way over to east, and you go onto Nirvana, and that tell them.
Yeah, well, the taco truck that sits in the parking lot of that junkyard is like the best food I've ever had of Mexican food in my life. Right? I mean, you would come out of that junkyard just like famished and like dehydrated, and you walk up to this truck and you're like, I need 1 gallon of horchata and a carne asada burrito, right?
That's the truth, right?
Yeah.
So while we're waiting for some tech questions, what do you got going in the garage right now? Are you working on a video or?
Well, things have been going kind of slow because I've been clamoring to try to stick my fingers in the dike for this thing, right? And then well, if you watched what was happening on my channel, I had an event last weekend, so I was over at Northeast Dragway, which we had a really good turnout. Chris Cox from Speed Oasis in Norfolk, he's actually the promoter there at Northeast Dragway, and they've been doing a bang up job out there for brackets. So I mean, it was busy for the whole weekend, and then I got to look forward to a 14-hour drive back home. So what I did 2 weeks ago was I put I had a 300 Buick that I picked up from a guy in North Carolina in like May, and it was sitting in a pile of kitty litter, right? And I'm like, it had no oil pan on, no valve covers, no heads, no intake manifold, and it was like, well, I'm gonna have to blow that sucker apart and then clean it all up and then re-ring and re-bearing it. Well, I got to looking and it was pitted to death in the cylinders. So I got the vacuum cleaner out and I vacuum cleaned the whole inside of like the whole motor out, right? And then I just started assembling parts on it, and I'm gonna make a dyno mule out of it.
That's
And we're
awesome.
gonna see how those 350 Buick heads do on that 300.
Yeah,
So,
the wife was just letting me know that there was an actual cam question that came through for a Doug. I'm not going to try to pronounce that last name. He says, I have a cam question. What cam would it be the best? That's ambiguous right there. The best for 51 stroker Mopar who wants to build it for Quench and will be using 440 source heads and hopefully a tunnel ramp. Oh, okay. So I'm going to naturally assume that this is going to be more of a street driver than a drag racer since you're using 440 source heads. And obviously there's no car information here because normally I like to get like the weight of the car, what gear, tire size you're running.
Burger.
Exactly, with transmission, so on and so forth. So it's a little hard to answer that without that information, but just assuming that it's going to be 440 source heads and you didn't mention that they're ported. So right off the bat, they're limited to about, I think they're 300, just under 300 CFM. If I'm right at 600 lift, I believe. So as far as a camshaft goes, I would be in the, see, you're going to want to shift that thing with a tunnel ram right around 65. So, and it's a 451. So let's go with a 245 in that range, say 250 on the exhaust, put it on maybe a 110 to make it a little bit more streetable. You didn't mention if you have vacuum brakes. I wouldn't lift it too much because you're just going to be cycling it. I'm like I said, I'm still assuming that it's a street car. I would definitely go with a hydraulic roller. If you can't, then at least make it a mechanical flat tap. But yeah, I'd be in the 245, 250 range. Put it on
That's
a
a
110.
50, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 50, exactly. I tend to do the 50 because depending on the ramp rates and so on and so forth, or if it's solid or hydraulic, advertise is going to be all over the map depending on ramp rates and so on and so forth. So that's why I tried to do it at 50, and that's kind of where you measure blowdown too, as far as on the exhaust. So as far as how air is going to come in. So yeah, 50 is the way to go.
Well, I'm on these old chats. So I got Buick Smith asked, best place to eat near the No Name Nationals. That's gonna easily be Lambert's.
No, I disagree.
You found someplace that's better in
yes,
Sikeston?
When we went there for the No Name Nationals last year, we were still in this waiting for Mexican food that was legit, and right next to our hotel, right off the road, I can't remember the name of it. The wife's going to look it up right now, but there was a Mexican restaurant that was right next to the hotel, and that was truly legit. It was awesome, and the salsa was good too.
Oh, there's two of them. There's one on either side of that hotel. I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah, this is the one that was closer to the highway, to the freeway. That it was.
Oh, okay, yeah, that one used to be like a.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't a Mexican steakhouse, Longhorn Steakhouse, I think is what it was.
Yeah, I think that's what it was, and now it's a Mexican joint, huh?
Yeah, it was actually because we went to Lambert's. That's actually we were told is the place of some thing called Throwed Rolls or something, and the line was just around the building.
That's Lambert's.
Lambert's. Yeah, and then we were just and they hadn't even opened up. They didn't even open up for an hour and a half, and the line was already, around the building. So
and we went in there. John Wilburn and I tried to make reservations for 200 people for the No Name Nationals, and they're like, we don't do reservations at all. I said, so you're going to be happy if we hit you with 200 people at one time? Well, sure. Yeah, I guess if you got 200 people, and I said, all right, fine.
Yeah.
So Buck does it saying my 3.8 Buick V6, someone told him that he can set the total timing as high as 52 degrees. That seems way too high. What's your opinion and recommendations? Well, okay. So what I found is every Buick, every single one responds the best when the timing is initially set at 12 degrees. Okay. And not 10, not 14, 12 is the magic number, and you'll know because as soon as you hit the key, the sucker will be running. Like it won't even turn over one time; it'll be running.
Yeah.
Now, total all in for the Buicks is generally for the V8s is you want to see no more than 32 degrees, okay? And you try to get it all in as quick as possible. But 52 for that V6, it sounds awfully high to me, but if you're assuming that's with vacuum vents and everything going cruising down the road, I think what I would do is I'd set it all in, at 1800 and it'd be 32 degrees advanced. And then I would play with my vacuum advance to add in that extra 10, 12, 14 degrees for cruise.
Yeah. It's funny that Slant 6 is the same way. 11 degrees initial. And then at least for ours, because it's a bit like small bore, long stroke, 30 degrees, that's it, maybe by 3,500. And then 15 degrees of vacuum. And it loves it right there.
Huh.
Yeah. It's amazing. So.
And it's weird when you get just those numbers. It's like what's ingrained in my head. Because I mean, I know if I set them at 10, they won't start as good as when they're at 12.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's exactly 11. How does it come out to 11? And that's, when I was trying to get this mileage thing, it just seemed to run the best there. Now, obviously, all the engines are different. I actually have 3 Slant 6 engines that the short blocks are as identical as you can get them. So that way I could play with camshafts. I must have put 50 different camshafts in these things, trying to find what worked. Was more duration on the intake, less on the exhaust, or I had forward durations, I had split durations, I had even, tight, I had wide. I tried it all, and I settled right. I think right now I'm at 220. No, I'm at 217 on a 106 right now, and that works the best. Yeah.
Oh, interesting enough, we got another question from Jonathan Couchy. He says,
Sure.
Any experience with the Hughes Whiplash cams?
Mm-hmm.
I don't have any personal experience, but I know that Tony, for every small block Dodge question, somebody would ask, what's a good street cam? He'd always recommend that cam, right? It was like the go-to camshaft for him, for a street driver. And then he says he's got a 360 ported 4-barrel iron, Brzezinski style, heavily ported 596 heads, chambers, exhaust, etc., headers. Cam will be in the next comment. So the cam is a 107 LSA, 102 install.
That's the intake center line. So that means it's 5 degrees advanced. So it's got a 224 at 50 on the intake, 236 on the exhaust. So how they're getting the sound on these is that they run a lot more exhaust. So the reason why they do work is because it's a tight LSA, so it tricks it into thinking it's got more compression than it does. So it's going to have that pop, that sound, and plus it's running that exhaust valve longer out there, so it's really going to be blowing it mostly out the exhaust. I really don't have much experience with the Whiplash cams. I just know camshaft numbers, and just looking at these numbers here, it's going to make noise. I mean, if that's the purpose of it, and some of them will drive okay, but you're not going to be gaining like ultimate power out of them. There's a much better combinations than that to get like, better drivability out of it. And there was actually a comment that I just saw up here out of Ruckwarts 1. It was a little above. And this is actually one I want to touch on because I was working on this quite a bit when I was at my other cam place. How do the older 60, 70 cam grinds compare to the newer cam grinds, idle, horsepower, torques, torque and others? Really what it comes down to is back then they had essentially a lobe. So you had 842 diameter lifter, and then they would just run it for whatever. Nowadays with computers, and especially what comp cams has now, as far as the way they have the programs for making the actual lobes, the ramp rates are just massively faster. So you're going to have a lot more area under the curve, and it's not necessarily to have a bigger cam. It could be the exact same numbers, like the old purple shafts were the exact same numbers they are now. They just make more power because you can ramp them up faster, you can shut them faster, and then you can, once you start getting into derivatives as far as like, waves, and I could go really deep down this rabbit hole, but I won't. They just run better. There's a lot more air into the curve for the newer cams, so they're going to run definitely a lot better.
Well, what's interesting about that is that I remember my dad and my grandpa always talked about because they were buying these cars when they were fairly new, right? They're like 2, 3, 4 years old. And my grandpa would always say, every car made after 1970 got worse mileage, right?
Yeah.
And he would always blame the camshaft because, and I'm assuming that had to do with emissions, is what I'm thinking. But
Absolutely.
That's the thing that's always kind of chapped my ass on all this stuff is like, we neuter the engine and make it less efficient for higher emissions. Well, the more efficient the engine is, the better it is on emissions. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's why I never understood this.
On my Slant 6, we actually, when I got it to about 26 miles per gallon and I had the 204R overdrive in it, we actually put a sniffer in the thing, and it was actually running better than some of the OBD1 style cars of the 1990s. And you're talking about a car that was made in 1969, and an engine that was designed in the 50s. So
yeah, when I did that, my white Ford truck, the first engine in it was just a refresh of that 351 Windsor that we drug out of that field. But the that one only lasted about, I don't know, maybe 50,000 miles or so. I mean, the block was already cracked when I got it, so it really didn't last too long. It started just spewing water out of that split bolt hole in the timing cover. But and I was dumb. I removed the bolt. I should have probably just welded something to it, like a stud, and then left it in there. But so lesson learned. I did a 393 quench motor after that, and I brought it. I mean, I think I had 22,000 clearance, right?
Wow.
And they say you try to get it as tight as you possibly can. So it was 10 3/4 to 1 compression, and it ran perfectly on 93 octane gas. The problem was when I get out of, let's say, Tennessee, and I get to like Iowa, you can't buy 93 octane gas.
No,
it's like 91.
Yeah.
And that sucker would ping so bad on 91, and it was only 2 octane difference, and I didn't think it was going to be anything, but I'm literally dumping 104 octane booster in there by a 55-gallon drum, and just to keep it from hammering itself to death. And I mean, it was like you got on it even remotely past quarter throttle. But on 93 octane gas cruising down the highway, it knocked down 25 miles a gallon. And I took it to the sniffer here in Tennessee. It was mandatory when I first moved here. For the first 2 years, they had emissions testing.
Yeah.
And they had to meet California emissions. And so,
whoa, really?
Yeah. I pulled in there with that old white truck. And I mean, it's like, there's not one thing on there that's going to pass emissions, right? Like it had cats on it, but it had no smog pump. And they opened the hood, and the guy looks down and he sees the pulley, and it's just an eliminator. And he's like, okay, let's sniff it. Oh man, this thing's really clean. It's new, or it's better than a new truck.
Yeah.
And I'm like, really? And he said, yeah, I don't know what you're doing this thing, but keep it up. Like, oh, sweet.
There was actually a question up here too that there was someone asking if Shane, it was Anthony. It was asking, is any chance of pushing 30 miles per gallon out of your wife's car? Yes and no. If you kept it under the whole idea is I wanted 30 miles per gallon at freeway speed. That's the key. Her car, we probably could get it at 60 miles an hour, but you're not going to get it at 70 to 80 miles an hour. And it's still a one barrel. I mean, that thing is completely stock. I did do a few ignition things to it, and the carburetor, I kind of drilled it out and I put some bushings in it so that way it wouldn't rattle. But yeah, it was I don't think I put a lower ratio first and second gear in the transmission went out in it, and it helps it out around town. So it's getting better mileage, but it really needs a lockup converter for it to get to that point.
It's too much slippage.
Yeah, it's too much slippage.
Yeah. Well, Deke Denny here. Deke is my tech guy for the AHRA. He says the Ford 351 Windsor 400 modified 73 and later were retarded 3 degrees in the lower timing gear.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
3 degrees on the crank. That's like 6 at the cam.
Yeah, because it goes. Yeah. Well, no. It's actually it's the other way around. So 3 at the crank would be 1.5 up top.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, because it goes twice as fast.
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
Jonathan, my brother has an 85 Slant 6 D150 with a lean burn, easily 25 plus miles per gallon on the highway with it. Yeah, exactly. But see, that's a lean burn, and and yes, you're right. It will do good going around and go. But man, I don't know. I've made a video of my car doing 75, 80. In fact, I just went to the duct tape drags out in October, and I drove it from Tennessee to Tucson straight. That's 24 hours of not even shutting the car off, and it still got 24 miles to the gallon. So you can't beat that.
But what the problem with those lean bird systems is, didn't they run them so close to the ragged edge?
They burn up. Exactly. Yeah, you'll melt. They'll actually crack the exhaust manifold right there where they come.
That's how the Dodges always got the broken exhaust manifold sound.
Yeah. Well, they actually, a lot of them happen just because. And in fact, on some of those, if there was a video of the wife's car that they drilled a hole in the carburetor to make a vacuum leak. It's literally an 1/8-inch hole that goes and it bypasses the
regular vacuum leak.
It is, exactly. And I put this thing together and it would run great, and then it would just start to fall off over the weekend. I'm like, man, this thing's out of tune, and I had wide bands on it, and it just never came in. And then there was another carburetor in the trunk, and I looked at it, and that's when I saw that, and I was just like, oh, this is the one I'm going to use. And it just runs light years better. It actually gets better mileage with that carburetor than it did with the one with the vacuum leak. So,
yeah, and then that's because you're actually giving it some fuel.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you can keep the air-fuel mixture correct, So, hey,
well, so Dizzy Izzy's checking in.
Yeah.
In evening Slant Daily, how's the creamy?
The creamy? Well, hold on. I actually have something on right now. So here we go. Look. These are coming in right now. Slant Daily Garage. Yeah. You should know that picture pretty well because you were on that outlaw Facebook page that we had.
I'm still on there.
Yeah.
I get banned on there at least once a month.
Right. There you go. Yeah. You should go check it out. Slanted Memes. It was we had another one called, it was actually Slant Daily. And I handed it over to some really good friends of mine I grew up with, and it's Slanted Memes. You go check it out. It's on Facebook, and it's
raunchy,
it's not,
be careful.
Yeah, it's not for the meek. And if you complain one time, banned for life.
Gone.
That's the way we do it. Yeah.
That's not why I'm getting kicked off. I'm getting kicked off from the stuff I post on there, right? Like, what's funny is when Shane and I were doing it, when did you start that? 4 or 5 years ago?
Yeah.
6 years ago?
Yeah. When I got my Dart, exactly. It was 17, I think, or something like that. Yeah. 16,
so I started
17.
posting stuff up there, and it still comes back to this day from like what I posted in 2017 is getting kicked off, right?
That's right. Yeah. What you posted went against regulations. I'm like, it's 5 years ago. Who cares? Right?
Yeah. All right. So there's Andy from Unity Motorsports Garage. What's up, Andy? Man.
Oh, hey, by the way, the last time I was live, we were going to give away this T-shirt and a sticker to the person who hit 500 to get me into the No Name Nationals. I went back and there was 3 of them, and it's impossible to tell who it is. And the wife will give me a list here of the 3 names. I think it was like Tall Garage.
Oh, that's Ken.
Yeah, and then there was Unfinished Project and
Dart Sport.
Yeah, and then there was another one. So we told them, in our thing, hey, we have a Slant Daily Garage at yahoo.com. Just they have to send it and tell us right here. Yeah, it's actually on the wall here. Unfinished Project, White Trash Motorsports, and Tall Garage. That's it. That's the 3. And they're going to get a T-shirt each, and then they're going to get a sticker. But there's one caveat to this. Since there's 3, we have to play one more game. And we're going to put all 3 names in there. And then whoever wins gets the T-shirt that is worn by the wifey while she washes her car. And they get the private video of that. How about that?
All right. Well, Buick Smith says he loves propane, high compression, and early ignition to get the power out at night's easy, but burns slow. And then Bad Trees telling him LP vehicles are so touchy. We had one as a rolling billboard, and for people to go to CTP test, nobody wanted to drive that thing. Total dog. Is propane makes him a dog? I thought propane actually has higher octane.
Yeah, but it's just so touchy. He's absolutely right. I've only messed with one vehicle that had propane in it, and it was just, you have to get it just right, to get it to run. It was just a pain in the butt.
I'm assuming that's because it's not being injected as a liquid. It's actually vaporizing into gas.
Gas. That's exactly what it was. It's like this little, hat on top, and depending on how it was and what the throttle position was, and
I can see it so easy to lean it out, right? Because you're dealing with gases. And I think I don't know if the liquid form, well, you'd probably burn through it super fast if it was liquid form.
Yeah, no, it's expanding. It's going into that. Yeah.
Oh, the Kickindells. What's up? You guys made it over here, huh? Well, we're trying to fill the void and make some people, like build the next generation's hot rodders, right? Give them as much information and leave it here on YouTube as possible, because that's what they'll be watching when we're all dead. So
yeah. Well, is that Jonathan? Am I saying that right? Jonathan? Yeah. He's asking me, Shane, do you prefer the 81 plus Slant 6s or do you prefer the older ones? Personally, think the 81 plus engines are much snappier. Yeah, I mean, it's a lighter crank. So I think Uncle Tony weighed him. I never weighed him between the two, but it's probably 20 pounds lighter or something like that.
Oh, it was bigger than that. I think he said like 40 pounds or something.
The crankshaft? Okay, yeah. For me, I really don't care, because what I'm doing with them, they're at an RPM and they're 2,500 to 2,600 and they're staying right there.
So you probably want that rotational mass.
Yeah, right? Exactly. It kind of helps out. Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, you are correct. It would absolutely be snappier. It would definitely be faster. And Uncle Tony was correct in making that style of engine, because the block is even lighter. So that's exactly the way I would go if I was going to race one. But,
and he put it in that car that literally has like just the bare minimum metal holding it together, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's an engine stand with wheels, essentially,
right,
and a roof, essentially. I went around them when I was up there and I looked at it, and there's literally hole saws, holes in everything. I was just like, wow.
Yeah, what was funny is he told me he would walk by it. Like, he had a shop at one time and he would walk by it like 3 or 4 times a day, and he got this idea that every time I walked by it, I was to drill a couple holes in it, and then and so by the end of 6 months, it literally was like hold up, right?
Yeah.
So, all right. Let's see. Is there any other further questions?
Well, I've been kind of looking on here, as we go along.
Oh, Andy's talking about he's working on the Casper. So, and he's working out in the sun in North Carolina. Yeah, I bet you it's hot, buddy.
Oh, is that the one? That's the race?
That was the one that Tony was supposed to race at No Name Nationals.
Oh, okay.
I think they had some kind of scheduling conflict with Andy's getting his headers done, so they're gonna have to put it off to the winter or until the later fall.
Oh, I gotcha. Okay.
Yes, Devin Bound, you're right. Nothing's lighter than a hole.
Absolutely, right. The bigger the better, right, on that one.
All right. Well, have you seen any other questions? Man, somebody throw something out there. You don't need to. It can't be Wednesday night tech talk if me and Shane got to make it all up.
Yeah, well, it's the first one. I kind of figured this as oh, look at the wife he chimed in there. There you go. There's the Creamy Beaver driver.
Well, you know what? Hey, so I think the last video that you and I did on Saturday, we kind of alluded to the fact that you and I had raced once before.
That's correct.
We should probably go into a little bit of depth of that, and not so much just our race, but I mean what it was all about, and because that's something that like I tried bringing it to the track up in Iowa, and it just went. I mean, it went well, but I got robbed at the gate, and so did Steve Sherman. But that didn't go so good. But we'll get into what's going on there. So,
the coming out here, there's really it's a different style of racing than what we had in San Diego or in Southern California. Cars are here; they're just they're really into this no prep turbo cars. A lot of people have cars like us, small blocks, run in the low 6s. And so what we did a match race, and way back in the day, Steve Sherman's dad, I can't remember his name right off the top of my head. Joe Sherman. That's right. He did some match racing. That's actually what he did. He was sponsored by Chevrolet. They would give him stuff, and he was a good friend of mine, even though I forgot his name. And then same with Steve Sherman. And so he started doing this thing about 7 years ago, match racing, and where he was lining up people, and it was great because it's not like who can play the best game and back into the person who's got the faster car so they can back in. This was man, instant green or pro tree, and 2 out of 3 race, and these cars are within a couple hundredths of each other. And what happened was is that me and Dallas, the previous match race, we ended up running almost identical times. So it was going to be a perfect race. And then there was going to be one thing, though, I had a trans brake and you had foot brake, right? Yeah, foot brake. And then the next, at some point, it was probably that burnout that I did at, Restaurant Row.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think the car show was killer. I mean, we lined the cars up nose to nose, and there was a couple of other cars that were awesome. There was a 57 Chevy Vet. Then you had remember that silver 57 Chevy that had no bumper, the gasser that ran out there?
Yeah, that was good. Yeah. And so we promoted it up, and it was a big event. And then we get there, and then my car just wouldn't run the number. It was, I had a crack in the block, and it was actually just spewing steam into it. And then life happened. You moved out here, and then wife, we had the twins, but we need to make that happen again. That would be cool, man.
Yeah. I told you, we're trying to set something up where we can do just like a little, it would be a neat little match race circuit between me and you. And there's a Greg Wins out of Ohio, or he's actually out of Kentucky. He's out of Erlanger, Kentucky. Has looks like a 1968 Grumpy Jenkins Camaro, right?
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
And it's got a big block Chevrolet in it with a Lenco, but it runs a 9x30 tire. And then there's another guy in Illinois named Stu Galloway, who's he's got a 85 Monte Carlo SS, and it's got a 427 LS, and it was running low sixes. And that's all of us run about the same number, and they actually kind of fit that same format. They're not back half, they're not tube chassis cars. It's literally like what Pro Stock would have been in 1970 applied to any car. And that's what gave me the idea to start that GT class for the AHRA when I first brought the AHRA around. Was what happens if you took that 1970 format that they had and applied it to any car that's ever been made, right? Yeah. Pro Stock was always limited to 4 years, right? So it's 4 years around 1970 is what the cars that all fit that format. But then Pro Stock evolved, right? And shortly thereafter, they went to the Lenco, and then they went to the back half, then they went to the tube chassis car, and then it was all the gloves were off, and you ended up with a fiberglass bodied whatever shell, and there was nothing left of the original car. But what would happen if you take any car now and apply that same basic set of rules to it? And that's what was neat when we were running at Verona was during that match race madness, there was about 5 or 6 cars that would fit that format.
Yeah, right.
I thought, oh man, we'll go out to the Midwest. There's got to be some more of these. No, not at all. Everybody wants to run the 5.3 LS motor with turbo on it from China, and
or the supercharged Hemi, and they're just everyone's making 1,000+ horsepower, and it's just, I get it. They're going really fast, and that's cool, but there's something to be said about a naturally aspirated small block getting up there, zinging to the moon and hauling ass. That's I think that's cool.
That's what I like. So Rick Warts 1 is asking, how much nitrous would the 350 Buick take and not melt? That is actually okay. So if you leave it bone stock, okay, it's probably got a piston ring gap of about 18 thousandths. So I would say you're looking at about 125 shot, and then anything over that, you're going to be breaking pistons, right? Absolutely. Now, if you pull it apart and start gapping them rings out to let's say 25 to 28 thousandths, okay? Mm-hmm. I'm almost certain you can probably feed that thing about 300 shot before it starts breaking stuff.
I used to get junkyard 360s, and we would open up the gap, and I could put a 250 shot to it, no problem.
Could you?
Yeah,
and see, here's what people don't understand. That stinking small block Buick that's what the V6 Buick's based off of, right?
Yeah.
So you think a Grand National runs good on a whole bunch of boost? Well, take a 350 Buick and feed it some chemical boost and see what happens, right? I mean, it turns into no shit. That's your Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. That thing will handle every bit of it and ask for more.
That's right. Yeah. And that's why I kind of gravitated to the Mopars is they got an 18-degree, a valve angle, shaft rockers. It had a really long rod in it, decent stroke. And it could take a lot of abuse factory, right. And that, who could afford to put all the good stuff in it, in the mid 90s and early 2000s. You were just basically just going to the wrecking yard. We were picking up $79 engines. We were throwing a camshaft in it, putting a 250 shot on it, and Friday and Saturday night we were street racing. That's just the way it went. Yeah,
man, in San Diego, I remember in like the 90s, 95, 6, and 7, it was hot and heavy. And it was down on the 905 freeway. They would go down to like an industrial park down there.
Yep.
Oh, it was so much fun, man. We used to get a 40 ouncer and just hang out on the curb and watch these things go. And I mean, it was like some of these guys be pulling in and they had the smoke makers on there intentionally. So it looked like it was wounded. And somebody would come up and like, hey, you want to race? Well, she's wounded. I don't really want to. Oh, come on, man. I got $100. I can beat you. All right. And then next thing you know, it's a rear Morrison motor with a mountain motor with spray on it. And it runs
just
deep in the sevens.
Yeah. I've actually been down there and seen that. Cause I used to go down there and race them all the time. At that time I had a 67 Volkswagen Bug, and I tried all the different engines. I went from a 1776, 1835, 1915. And then I went all the way, and then I stepped right up to a 2332. And there in Poway, there was the V8 crowds, and there was like this import crowd. The Hondas were really big at that point. And I went down there thinking I was just like, yeah, I'm going to go down there and clean clock. I saw how fast those guys were. I was like, yeah, I was running maybe a 13 in the Bug, and I thought I was bad. But a 13-second street car in the 90s was good.
Oh, I saw
those guys were running 9s,
I saw a Bug run at Carlsbad, and that's my jaw was on the ground. That was like 96, 97. It had a roof rack on it, right? And it still had the trunk in the back that closed over the motor.
Yep.
And it came up there with the trunk kind of like hanging open so it could get some airflow.
That's right.
And that thing launched so hard.
It's all the weights back there.
Straight out, right?
Yeah.
And then every time you bang a gear, it'd be like, bam, 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 bam. And I mean, it ran at like 1270 in a Bug.
Yeah, I went 13.1, so I was right there. And I used to run that with 165 rear tires at 22 pounds. And I would go up there, and I'd have 135s in the front. And they're like, you're going to race me with those? Those are the size of the tires in the front. I have a 300-pound engine and a 70-pound transmission over the rear axle. I'm going to get traction. I'm good.
Yeah. Well, Colleen Tebow is saying, how come closed chamber heads don't raise compression? I bought an 88 318 and it's a dog compared to a 71 318 that was in my son's Dart. All right. So closed chamber heads will raise compression, but what you're comparing is they probably have the same compression ratio with the closed chamber versus the open chamber. Now the closed chamber will help with detonation, right? They'll pull some heat out of that combustion cycle so it won't detonate as easily, right? But most likely, probably what you're looking at is that 71 motor probably had a much better camshaft than what your 88 did for sure.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Was 88 a roller cam?
I think it was. Yeah. Cause I think the Magnum came out in 91, I believe. And there was like 3 years there where it was still an LA head and it had an aluminum and a hydraulic roller. I'm not sure the exact year. Someone could probably chime in. But yes, there was a few. I think it was 2 years actually that it was a hydraulic roller with an LA head.
Oh, that's cool. All right, Mopar Al is in the house.
Oh, what's going? Hey, I never got to thank you personally for the sticker, Mopar Al. So thank you for the sticker. I'll trade you. I'll get you one when I get mine.
Yeah, well, it would be at No Name National, so you could trade them.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, Jonathan Couchy says, "What do you guys think about doing one of those big 5-liter?" plus Oldsmobile straight 8s. Oh, no. Overhead valve, wedge head, huge stroke, another engine I'd like to get a chance to build. I'm going to be on the fence on this one. I'm going to say no, just because I can't imagine picking that crankshaft up.
Yeah, I've done my fair share of long stroke small bore. I've learned so much with the Slant 6. On especially with other engines and what works and what doesn't work. Slant 6s are kind of their own little deal, but I'm over the big, huge, massive inline engines as far as making power. I'm good with the Slant 6s. So yeah, I probably wouldn't want to do it either.
Well, I imagine that even the Slant 6 crank has got to be heavy.
It is. I think it's 79 pounds or 80 pounds, something like that. It's ridiculous.
That's pretty heavy.
Yeah.
Okay, so Martin Hildebrand says 35 years ago, the Chrysler 904 lifter was awesome. I believe you could run way more radical ramp rates on the cams, pre-roller, everything.
That's right. Actually, in fact, even to this day, you can almost get the same power as a roller as a flat tappet. You know, not exactly the same, because obviously you can get much greater lifts. You can get much more aggressive. You're not going to gain the same RPM. But there's, as far as cost goes, you know, there's a lot of guys that I made a lot of cams for on the circle track, and it was very tough to tell on the track the difference between a solid roller and a flat tappet with the 904 lifter. In fact, there's a few guys that run like a 1-inch lifter just for that in circle track racing, so that way they can get the ramp rates faster.
Oh, Mid Muscle here is saying that check out John Andrade's YouTube channel from Street Outlaws. He's the one that used to have the Cuddy, I believe.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
His dad put a turbo on a Buick 350 and it hauls. Well, he's not the only one, because I'm working on that myself. I'm going to do it. You guys, I've already alluded to it on my channel. So Project Boat Anchor,
yeah,
going to be probably one of the neatest things I've ever done. But it's going to be an EFI 350 Buick with turbo on it, and we're going to see what an HX35 turbo from a Cummins is going to do to a bone stock 350 Buick.
It's perfect.
Yeah,
it's a perfect. It's actually designed just for that cubic inch engine, so it's going to run just beautifully. It's going to be awesome.
I think it's going to, you know, it's not going to be 30 pounds of boost. It's going to be probably, I don't know. We could probably play with it and get maybe 15 out of it, but it's going to come in so fast, and then because it makes so much torque.
Well, that my
Cummins, ridiculous.
My Cummins comes on at like 1500.
Yeah, that's how this is going to be.
Yeah, so you're going to be basically right off idle, and just it's going to hit like a truck, you know.
Yeah. All right. Well, we got a lot of the big names from the Wednesday night Tech Talk Live. I'm glad some of them made it over. So
good. Thanks for coming over, guys.
Yeah, thanks for coming. We're trying to revive the Wednesday night Tech Talk Live.
Yeah.
So
it's cool. It's fun.
All
it's a nice little hangout for Wednesdays, you know.
If I can catch up here. I'm bad at keeping up with the chat if it's not scrolling by itself. I always stop it when Tony and I would do the show. I would stop it, and then Tony wouldn't realize it was stopped, and we would sit there for like 5 minutes, and nothing would change, and he would say, "Oh, is the chat down?" Or did we lose connectivity?
Yeah. So mostly Old Parts and Russ says, "Yeah, thanks for 89 was the first year for the 360, ended in 91." So yeah, there was that was, I remember it was like 2 or 3 years. In fact, when my twins were first born, I worked for Action Cylinder Heads, and I was rebuilding engines, and we had one guy come in, and it was a block, and I'm like, oh man, I got that, and it was that one of those years. It was a 1990, I believe, and it was a hydraulic roller, but LA head, and it was completely different than the rest. So yeah, that's the only way I know that. So yes.
Well, Clayton says he's tempted to get a Buick, and I tell you what. 350 Buicks, you can still get them cheap. Nobody wants them. Nobody knows what they are. Shane gave me one for free.
Yeah.
Like, just come pick it up. It's yours. Like, okay, sweet. Martin Hildebrand, Dallas, have you ever had Schneider grind you a cam in San Diego? I have very good results with them. I have.
Is that Hildebrand? Is that actually Hildebrand from San Diego?
Like the wheels?
No, Hildebrand. He used to race at Verona. I used to race with him in Verona. If that's the same Hildebrand, but yeah, he used to race. I'm trying to remember his car. He used to have that 32 Ford, that like green looking 32.
Is that the one that had the Y block in it?
That's it. Yeah, that's him.
Huh. Oh,
I believe so.
There was one with a Y block that ran 6s, and I'm like, a Y block Ford in the 6s?
But that car weighed,
1,800 pounds.
Yeah, exactly.
Pounds.
That's right. Yeah.
But, well, so to answer your question, Martin, I have had a cam ground at Schneider, and Shane's probably gonna have to put his fingers in his ears because he worked for the competition there, which was Crowder, but Schneider was the coolest cam grinding thing I've ever seen in my life.
Absolutely.
I walked up to the Mexican taco stand. I ordered a carne asada burrito. I walked 10 feet over, and I ordered a camshaft the same way through the same window. Yep. Right? And waited there and picked it up. I mean, it was literally like the coolest. If you ever get a chance to buy a camshaft from Schneider in San Diego, California, it is an experience all by itself. No other place has got it.
That's right. And they have the coolest sticker in the world. They have the coolest logo.
They do.
Yeah.
It looks like with the Germans, not the swastika, but the
Iron cross.
Yeah. It's I just thought it was so cool. You're literally ordering a camshaft through a window at like an open air bar, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I just thought it was so freaking cool.
Yeah, it is good.
And I can imagine back in the 60s, that place would have been lined with like fuel cars and all kinds of stuff, man. And
especially that road that's right there too. I'm trying to remember the name of the street. There was a place, Brick by Brick was right off there. But there was, stories of them drag racing fuel cars down that road,
What, we're right by Schneider?
Yeah, right there.
Holy cow, dude. That's like downtown Linda Vista area.
Yeah, that's the one that's right. If I'm remembering correctly, you take the 8, then you would get off at I can't remember the name of that road. Rosecrans.
Oh, no. Rosecrans was the one that the Navy base was on. You went one exit up from Rosecrans on 5. And
I
can't remember what that thing was called. And then you got off there, it's like I don't remember.
Yeah, I'll Google it.
Danny Boyd, I'm kind of they don't sell tacos there. There's a taco shop right next to it that if you don't like, if it's kind of confusing because you think you're at Schneider Cam's and they're selling Mexican food because it's literally like next door to the place. And so you got a Mexican guy hanging out a window. You could go in there and you could order tacos or burrito or whatever. And then you could go to the next window over and that's Schneider Cam's. It's so cool.
It's true. Yeah, 100%. I'm actually doing a little Google Light thing here because, man, I got to know the name of this road.
I tell you what, and it's on the tip of my tongue because me, my entire Navy career, I went to school out there the whole time, right in Point Loma. So
is it Marina Boulevard? Marina Boulevard. Yep, that was it. And there was Marina Boulevard is the one that paralleled the 5 right there, and the train tracks are.
Devin Bound says he lived on Rosecrans for about 11 weeks back in 1975. Probably going to
I know exactly. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. But Danny Boyd says he likes his cams like he likes his tacos. Hot. Right.
Hot, and that's spicy.
That's what was cool about Schneider. I really liked it. I lived there in Linda Vista in the Navy housing, and I drove by Schneider on the way home from work, and Shane was actually working at Crowler at the time.
Yeah.
And I probably could have got a cam pretty cheap from him, but I mean, I literally drove by Schneider every day.
Yeah.
And I thought, man, I need to stop in there and just check that place out. And it was cool. I'm glad I did. I mean, it was one of those places that's just like you need the experience, I guess.
But where I'm working at now, like, when I was working at Crowler, okay, you had Schneider, then you had Crowler, and then I thought Crowler's like, as far as camshafting, I had it. I went to comp and it was like going to like, it was just like going to Mecca. You know what I mean? It was just I'm going to make a video. In fact, I'm doing it on the camshaft for my Gen 3 Hemi on everything that goes through as far as checking the camshaft. And it's going to blow your mind. It's just amazing. I work there and it's amazing to me. So yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Cam stuff is kind of where it's at. That's all about the timing of the engine, right? So
that's right.
And that's also probably what the highest parasitic loss piece besides the rings. So
yeah, it depends. Yeah, exactly. On the solid roller, absolutely. Yeah, because you figure you're putting 200 pounds of seat pressure and maybe 500 to 600 over the nose. So yeah, it's
Well, Danny Boyd says tell you put them comp lifters in your mill. No. So I'm assuming that there may be a problem with those. I don't know.
Yeah, no comment.
Yeah. Well, Ruckwart says, Iski still making cam? Yeah, for sure.
Is he?
Matter of fact, Ed Iskandarian showed up at the AHRA booth when I was at PRI in 2019, 2020. I know I've been 19 because 20 they were shut down for the airborne illnesses, right? So Ed was still kicking it then, and he was like, well, damn, you guys are running the AHRA now. I should invite you out for my 100th birthday. Well, that happened, I think, during 2020 for his 100th birthday. And as far as I know, the guy's still going. Let's see. Oh, yeah, Martin Hildebrand, Jerry Cantrell is top shelf. And that's the guy that actually runs Schneider cams. His boy was the one that I went up there and ordered a cam from, and he works the window. But
okay.
I love that place. It's so cool. It's just so different. Let's see.
Those Riff Raff. Check that one. The 455 heads. What cam should I use?
Oh, well, we were talking about this the other day. Me and Shane actually were talking about this.
Yep.
All right. So what's the purpose of your engine there, Riff Raff? Because luckily I've been screwing around with this camshaft, dialing in what to get for high compression factory Buick stuff here recently. So let me know the principle, or the purpose of what you're going to use the engine for, and I'll tell you what cam you need to go after.
Yeah. It's funny, we were just talking about this. I think it was last week.
Street and strip. Okay. Oh, well, all right. So Shane and I looked at about 20 different cams. And actually, while I'm sitting here right now, I'll pull up this Excel spreadsheet that I got that somebody started on the web, and I added every cam I could possibly find from any Buick to this Excel spreadsheet. It must have had 100 cams on it. But and I'm pretty certain the one that I really like that works for, okay, so you're going to have a little bit of chop, but it's going to keep all the low end grunt, and you're going to have a lot more upper RPM horsepower, is the TA 284-88H.
Absolutely.
And Shane was telling me that, if you get it from TA, you said the ramp rate's a little slow, it's a little soft. So it's hard, it's not hard on parts.
No. He wanted, the whole idea to that is so that way he could have, I'm getting an echo. Are you guys hearing an echo? Nope. Maybe it's just a little thing. The whole point that he wanted was so that way he could run the lightest springs possible on the seat and over the nose, so that way it didn't destroy anything. So that was the whole reason behind it. So yes.
Yeah. Parts attrition wasn't a factor.
Yeah.
Right. And you weren't wiping lifters or lobes.
Yeah, exactly.
But and then you can actually take the same grind and go to Schneider, for instance, or Comp, or and they will grind you the same camshaft, but most likely it's probably going to have a higher ramp rate.
Absolutely. You get more air into the curve. It's just going to make it work that much better. So absolutely.
Right. But it should function pretty much the same way, right?
Oh, absolutely. It will actually it'll do the exact same. It'll have the same as far as curve, but it's just going to be higher,
Right.
So there was actually a question up here that it's a really simple. There was Buick Smith for the same lift, LSA, and duration. Will there be a difference from a flat plane crank and a regular crank? Flat plane crank, it will not. I made one of these I designed one for Lewis. He's putting one in his LS, and you have to run. They're going to shake apart. So by the time and the cost goes into that, you're going to have titanium rods, and then the crank is really light, and then the only way you're going to make power is in a very narrow band, because you're going to have to run such a big camshaft. Just stay with the cross plane. It's just the way to go.
Well,
by the time you spend,
there's a reason why they made it for 100 years, right? So.
Exactly. And you're going to spend $7,000 in titanium rods, and you haven't gone anywhere. And then right underneath it, Fab ask, is there any reason to run a 2.0 rocker ratio? Absolutely. Always run. The faster the rocker arm ratio, the faster the valve movement, everything's better. So the better. I always try to get the biggest rocker arm ratio I can. That will work this is for race engines.
But there gets to, so that 2-to-1 that nobody talks about, that ratio, let's say your spring has 150 pounds.
Yes.
Just closed. Okay. And you're going to try to open it up. It's going to take 300 pounds at that pivot point, right?
That's correct. Yeah,
so
that's correct.
You're going to need
strong parts.
Right. You're going to need good parts.
Yes. And then also, too, you're going to get that mechanical advantage going the other direction by closing it. So that's the reason why pro stockers, they run up that 2.0 plus.
And then that would essentially push the cam away after it passes the peak point on the ramp, right? Or on the low.
Yeah, and those cam journals are massive, and there's a reason for that. So that way it's not just falling off of a cliff, So
dude, I don't know if I ever told you this, how cool San Diego was for me when I went out there for I got out there just at the right time to do the Match Race Madness thing and meet you and Steve and Joe before he passed, right? And but I had problems with my transmission. I kept blowing it up. Like right after I got there, I blew it up. Then I rebuilt it, and I blew it up again. And then you guys turned me on to Dana Sniff, who did C4s out there for the off-road trucks, right?
That's right.
And I took that the transmission up there to him, and it was a C4, and he says, oh, yeah, I can get it turned around. But he's like, you want to see something cool? I just got this haul of Cleveland parts, right? And he had a Dyno Don Nicholson camshaft that was ground by Crowler. Wow. And he was showing it off, and it was like, this was from like 1978 or something. And so it was big solid roller back then. And, you know, he was showing me the cam, and he was taking it out of the box. Like, what a beautiful piece. I'll never run this in anything because it's absurd, and the technology's way old, right?
Yeah.
But when he had it out of the box, I snapped a picture of that cam card, and I've been proud of that ever since. I want to have one ground, dude, and I want to run it in like in a Windsor or something.
Yeah, it'd be cool.
Yeah, it was like 740 lift, and it was nuts, man. Like, this was Dyno Don Nicholson's pro stock camshaft in 1978. All right. Kickendales is asking Dallas, what bell housing bolt pattern does the Buick 350 run? It's a standard BOP, GM BOP.
Yeah.
And then, so Jeep bought that engine and ran it in the Jeeps in 68, 9, and 70, I believe. I think they still have a BOP housing, but then they got like a weird
AMC
Turbo 400 AMC Turbo 400, but it's got an adapter plate to that, and it's weird, but I believe they still all have the Turbo 400 bell housing.
Yeah.
You know, matter of fact, I met a Jeep guy. And he was looking for a low compression Buick 350 because 68, 9, and 70 are all 10 and a quarter, or the worst case scenario 9 to 1, and they still don't run good on regular gas. And so this guy was looking for 8 to 1 compression, and I said, well, why don't you just pull that? It's got a Turbo 400 for an AMC. Just pull it out and put a Turbo 400 for a Buick behind it. And he said, because it's going to throw everything for the transfer case and the drive shafts off by like an inch and a half.
Oh.
And he would have to re-engineer the whole entire thing. So your shifter linkage and everything would all be off. And it was like, man, what a mess. It might be easier to actually just to set the motor back another inch and a half.
Yeah, right.
Excuse me. So, all right. Anthony Smithy, I liked the pick apart up by Newport in the mid 80s. You could find anything. Dude, them SoCal junkyards. All right. I know California, that place is run by liberal trash.
Oh,
and it's just expensive as hell to be there. But if you can get in and out of there for a vacation, and you can take the wife down to Pick Apart and Nirvana Way in San Diego, or you go up to what's the one in it might have been the Pick Apart. No, there's one called Memory Lane up by LA.
Yeah.
Anaheim area, I think.
That's a good one too. Yeah.
Oh, that one's awesome. And if you could time it just so you could run into the
taco truck.
Well, no, yeah, the taco truck would be nice. But I was thinking, what's that? Well, the Long Beach Swap Meet, man. That was a place.
Right.
And yeah, the one in San Diego's gone now. That one was killer too.
Yeah, the whole COVID thing killed that. You know, that was Charger Steve was actually trying to take that over, and it just never got traction again after the whole COVID deal.
Really? That was such a. Do you remember? Oh, okay, all right. And this is showing my age, but when I first went in the Navy, San Diego was like, that was the furthest I'd ever been from home, right? So it was like literally another world to me. Yeah. And when I got out there, I mean, I'm originally from Illinois, so we didn't have palm trees. We had corn as tall as palm trees, but no palm trees, right? The other thing was, it wasn't sunny every day in Illinois. And not every day. It would like rain or snow or be cold.
Or every hour do something different. Right?
Yes. Yeah. And then, but you get to San Diego and it was like awesome. Well, I started doing the gearhead stuff in San Diego. So the junkyard was my thing because it was like $1 to get in. And then I remember I walked in the junkyard and, you know, I'm a kid from the Midwest. So everything 70s is rusted and gone, right? Like it's all gone. You can't go to the junkyard and find anything. It'd be, if there's anything there, it'd be like from the 80s or maybe the early 90s. Mm-hmm. And they said, oh yeah, the old cars are in the back. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I walk back there to the old cars and it's like 50s cars. Like
that's right.
1950s stuff lined up out here, right? And I walked to the newer car section, and there's like a Dodge Demon, 70 Riviera.
Yeah.
Like, what in the world?
My wife drove a 70 Dodge Dart for a while when she was going to school. It was a blue one. And I went in there many times and got tail lights and my 66 Dart, the car that I raced you with, those tail lights are from Nirvana Way at Picker Park off of a 66 Dodge Dart. I got those out of there for $3.
I pulled so much stuff out of those yards like that you'd never seen before. I pulled a Grand National hood and a Grand National rear axle, the rear drums, which are aluminum, right? The drivetrain was gone, but the car was there. And you're like, a Grand National in the damn junkyard. Well, in San Diego, there's so many people in Southern California that it's not an absurdity you see something like that.
Yeah,
right?
and also too, like with you in the Navy, a lot of people will leave. The cars will be like, in the storage shed, and then they just end up in the wrecking yard.
Yep. But there was so much stuff that I expected to never see in the junkyard. SS Impalas in the late '90s, SS Impalas were stacked like cordwood out there.
Yeah,
and it makes me cringe. And then you remember in the '90s or the early 2000s, all of the taxis were 9C1 police cars, and they were like literally littered the junkyard. You could go get 9C1 police car parts all day long.
That was right.
Colleen, did yes, I got my email fixed. You can email me. It's still the same, Dallas@ahraonline.com.
Yeah, and if you guys want to send me an email and you want to ask questions, slantdailygarage@yahoo.com.
And the thing that I also did was I linked your channel on the description. I don't know if you saw that.
My screen's a little different than what I saw before.
Well, that's because we're on StreamYard. But if you went over to the YouTube feed that we got going on over there, in the description for the show, I put the link to your channel.
Awesome.
And let's see, the Mr. Rodder's Neighborhood, and then I hashtagged about everything with tires on it. So
beautiful. Yeah, this coming up, I have a couple more videos coming up. We're actually going to be building the rest of the engine, doing the degree in the camshaft for the 6.1 Hemi, and then me and the wife are finishing up the firewall on that thing, getting all the holes covered up. I don't think it's going to make drag week. Just getting parts is impossible, and with that car. But I'm still going to go. I'll take the Desert Dart. I'll take the Slant 6, and it'll be me, my brother, and maybe my daughter. She's 12. She's still interested, so I'll bring her along. Why not? I got seats in the back.
I'm gonna have to bring something to the No Name Nationals. It's just been bothering me the whole time, and I think I'm gonna take the Lemons Buick.
There you go.
And just let it eat. I mean, it's got a
Is it fast?
Rear, not really. It's got a 264 rear end gear, but it does weigh 2,600 pounds with the driver, right? So.
What do you think? What do you think time wise? 15, 14?
What's that?
A quarter
8 mile?
8 mile. Yeah, 8 mile time.
I bet it's probably like maybe 850s.
850s.
I don't know. It might be slower than that. I don't know. It is. I mean, it does have a pretty crap gear in it, but it doesn't weigh anything. So I don't know.
I've been kicking around this. I've actually, there was a couple nights where I just can't sleep. Some days I just can't sleep. I was laying in bed, and because I'm not going to make the 68 Dart for a drag week, my 66 Dart, all it really needs is that engine slid right in there, and then just an alignment. Man, would that be something to bring out there to the No Name Nationals? If I'm taking the Desert Dart, if I'm taking that Lizard King to drag week, I don't really have to do much for it. Just change tires and change the oil and let's go. So I might put some focus into that and then work on the 68 over the winter. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, you're talking about take your 66 up to the No Name Nationals
and just lay waste.
And see, that's one thing that I don't know. I was you, I would jump in on that 10.5 thing, guy, because those guys will be like, be running about maybe a second faster, but you don't have any power out of it at all. Right?
No, I don't have anything. Yeah,
that's what I always thought was really cool about what we were doing out there in at Verona and SoCal was small block naturally aspirated. There is actually a class out there.
Yeah,
a group of guys run around called 10.5 NA.
That's
right?
correct. Yeah.
And
But
this is
th-
the not fucking around class. I mean, some
they're
of it's
fast.
stupid
Yeah.
fast.
Shiloh Davis, I believe it's called the White Dart. I think he's got the time on it right now. And I don't want to quote it, but it's really fast.
It's like 560s.
Yeah. Think about that. That's really fast.
That's
That's a
an
small
innate
block
car. That's
Mopar. Yeah.
no power adder.
Nothing.
So
They just started allowing big blocks into it, but they have to run a 28 tire where the small blocks can run a 29.5 tire. So that's the only difference, the only caveat between the two.
yeah, that was see. And you remember Sean McBee? He had that Valiant that was super fast. That green Valiant. He used to leave like on the bumper.
That's right. That's all that torque. That's a big block. I think it's a 451. In fact, the people who built that engine, I designed the camshaft for that. So that was a good one. That's a good one. Yeah. What do we got here?
Well, Chris Cox from Northeast from Fab Race Mod Repeat says he's surprised that 10.5 NA hasn't caught on out there or anywhere else. And I don't know why it hasn't, to tell you the truth, because it's actually probably the most cost-effective class.
Yeah.
It was like you build a motor, you could probably build one for $6,000 to $7,000, and then you just need a lightweight car. Really, I was running my T-Bird in it, so it didn't have to be that lightweight. I mean, dang, my stuff was. Well, how much did your dart weigh? Mine was 2,600 pounds, I think, with me in it. 2,700.
It's 2,800 pounds. Yeah. Well, actually, because I still have the dash and everything right now, it's with the new K member, it's going to be 2,800 pounds down the track.
All right, Ruckwarts, you say your 8th mile times are meaningless to me. So if those guys are running 550s, that's probably about an 890, 870, somewhere around there, depending on how hard a car charges at the top end.
Yeah, but that's moving.
Shane and I were both running around about 950s or so.
Yeah. There was one time I clicked off a 941. That was at it was at Phoenix. What was that? Wild Horse Pass Dragway, and it was like perfect conditions. It was like 500 feet below sea level that day, and it was like 60 degrees outside, and then the timing was off, and it was like test and tune. So I went out there, and I at the time I could only run a 10.0 because I didn't have the cage for it. I went out there and clicked out a 941 at 141 in that car. That thing was ripping that day.
Yeah, well, here's what's going to be interesting, because people don't know this, and you may have seen it, but I don't think we were at the Slant Nationals long enough. Jeffers Motorsports Park. So when you're looking at drag racing, especially bracket racing, there's guys that measure what they call the DA, the density altitude, right? Oh crap! I'm getting torn.
Get rid of it. Can you get rid of it?
No. I already got. It's probably already gone on YouTube. No, it's on there on YouTube. Where's John Wilburn at?
1, 2, 3. It's ridiculous. If you know. Whatever.
Let's see here. How's that?
There we go.
I did my own. Yeah.
Oh, look at you. He was asking mostly old parts and rust. Shane, what was the combo that ran the 941? Okay, it's a 360 block. Actually, it's a real 360 block. Didn't have any concrete in it. Had the Milodon splay caps. It was a 408. It had the 360-1 heads and the single plane intake, custom cam. I believe at that time I was running 270 duration at 50, 278 on a 108 LSA of riding a 700 lift. I was running a 1050 Dominator, fender well headers, 2-inch to a 3.5 inch primaries, I believe, something like that, to a collector. Fixed Milodon gear drive and a few other little odds and ends. But yeah, it was fast. It was, for what it was ridiculously fast. And I used to shift it right around 72. I'd go through the traps at about 75, 7,800.
Well, what I was going to say was when you get to Jeffers Motorsports Park, especially with bracket racing, they measure the DA. And the DA normally, like during the daytime, will probably be around 1,600 feet, right? So, but at night, when the sun gets behind the trees on the west side, it will drop, and sometimes it's below sea level, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, like, dudes will come up from one pass to the next and break out by 1/10.5, and you're like, 1/10.5? I mean, well, come on, pay attention to what's going on with the DA. And when I started bringing that up, nobody was racing. There was Brett Kepner was out there racing with that same thing I used. It's the shooting match grade weather machine that you hold in your hand.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember what it's called, but yeah, you use those for like long range shooting, professional long range shooting, right? So they know where the wind is at, the barometric pressure and the temperature.
Oh, he asked me mostly all parts and rust. What was the compression? I kept it under 13-1 so I could run 110 fuel, because in San Diego, believe it or not, we had 110 VP at
On
the
pump.
pump.
Yeah.
That's right. I would drive right up. I could put 110 VP, and they were like, well, that's different. No, though. There was one day I drove up there and I saw them filling the 5-gallon containers from that pump. So it's the same stuff. So yeah.
I remember the one on oh dang it, with SeaWorld Drive. SeaWorld Drive, that VP station all the way on SeaWorld Drive, and it was like you're like literally the neighborhood filled with nothing but super richety old people, right?
Right.
And then their gas station was a VP Mad Scientist gas station. They had
That's right.
100 octane low lead on pump, or no lead. We might have been unleaded. And then they had the 110 that you could literally, like, was race fuel.
Race fuel, yeah.
Yeah, on pump. I can't imagine, like, Grandpa Irvin going out there and filling up his
right.
whatever he had, his hospital or his wheelchair van with some 110 Mad Scientist fuel. But I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
But you couldn't get 93 octane anywhere.
No.
Places.
No. Yeah, that was a trip. And there was another place that had 100 octane, but it was, full of ethanol and all. It just ran like crap,
Yeah. I always got the VP stuff, and it ran good up at Verona. I tried using the pump stuff. You could get some Sunoco off the pump there. Not Point Loma. What's in between Point Loma and SeaWorld Drive and all that stuff? What is that?
Mission Beach?
Yeah, Mission Beach.
Yeah.
They had one up there that had a Sunoco station that had 110 Sunoco, I think. Or no, it was a GT 260 GT or something like that, whatever fuel. And it didn't run as good up at Verona. It started missing and popping.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was just ethanol in there or was it just oxygenated. I have no idea.
Yeah, I think it was the ethanol, because it just same thing happened with me. It was like, oh, this is 105. I don't have to spend $8 a gallon. It was $5 a gallon. It just wouldn't run right. I had to take so much timing out of it. I could run 36 or 38 degrees with the other 110. I was down to 30, 32 to keep it from detonating. So, yeah.
Well, mostly old Parts and Russ wants to know: did you street drive that combo?
Absolutely.
With 700 lift cam?
Absolutely. Yeah. Why not? That's the whole point of it. You can't drive it on the street. What's the point? Yeah. It was plated. It's legal. I didn't drive it often, but I would take it down to the car show, which there was the Elkhorn Cruise Night, which was, we lived in Bostonia, so it was like a 4-mile drive or something like that by the time you got gas. But yeah. Why not?
Well, and that's the thing I liked about when we were racing out there at that group, man. That NA 10.5 group was probably one of the tightest groups I ever seen when it came to race cars. I mean, it's not like we had some exclusivity to our club or nothing. It was just like, if you were pitted and you needed a part, right? And
they
you go to any other pit, they would help you out.
Yeah.
If you went over to NA 10.5 guy's pit and you might be racing the guy, he would say, oh, I got that exact one. And they may take it off your car so you can make a pass, right?
Yeah. Stay in the time.
Yeah. Don't do that.
No. And that's a whole thing. And, I love, you made a mention about like thriving in Tennessee. That's absolutely, you're not surviving, you're thriving. There's one thing though, is that San Diego did have the car community as far as the racers just on lockdown. I is a lot more comfortable going to the races there than I am here.
I really liked going there because it was like, you still saw like the myriad. There would be 32 Fords, and there would be 57 Chevrolet gassers and Willys and Vets and Vets that were gassers and all the way up to something brand new, right? There was a Shelby Cobra Mustang that ran down a Shelby Mustang that ran down the drag strip, was a drag car there. A Shelby Mustang, and not like one of the early ones, or like one of the later ones, like a 67 or 8 with the scoops and fairings all over it.
Yeah.
You remember that guy? Like, he just made pass after pass after pass. And you're like, God, man, wish I had a irreplaceable big
Car.
board.
Yeah.
You know,
Just
just beat on it till it
no
dies.
problem. Right.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he's owned that thing for so long, he doesn't see it as that. He sees it as a car, like
Yeah.
my Dart, my 68 Dart. So people come here and they're like, "There's no rust on it. Why are you cutting it up?" It's like, to me, it's a car. You know, it's just the whole point of it is to enjoy it. I want to make it what I want it to be. You know, and so yeah, so I understand. So he says he can't imagine street driving something like that. What was your gear ratio? Now, a small tire used to be a 28 diameter. Then, for whatever reason, a small tire became magically a 29.5. When I had the 28, I ran a 430. And then with the 29.5, I was running a 456. In fact, the 456 gear is still in there right now.
Oh, dude. Well, I tell you what, man. I run a 390 gear in my T-Bird, right?
Yeah.
And
but your car's a lot lighter than mine, though.
I know it. And
yeah.
But geez, like well, of course, mine was max revved at 6,700, right?
Yeah.
I didn't spin it that hard. I was using the low end torque that thing was making to really get us through. But and you were using the brutal horsepower what that small block Dodge was doing. You were winding it up pretty good.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to do. You know, I wanted something that would rev up pretty good. And this block here, I put concrete in this one, but it's essentially the same setup. It's just got concrete in the block, so that way it just won't crack as easy. And when this one goes, I got a 6.4 Hemi. I'm actually, this is my very last small block Mopar ever. I have it. You can get I spent a lot of money on those cylinder heads.
Mm-hmm.
And the airflow out of those heads, you can get a 6.4 comes factory with that airflow, and you don't have to spend $5,000. They come factory like that. So to get 700 horsepower out of a small block Mopar is like, you know, you might as well have some fairy dust, pixie dust, you know, and like, you know, little chance and luck to get that out of a 6.4. It's just a cam change, really, you know, and you got 700 horse. So,
well, and you know, I'm into the Buicks now, and I got all these Buicks to sort through, and there isn't a dang thing I could do to any of them to kind of come out with those kind of numbers.
Yeah, right.
You just don't have the cylinder heads to support it, the bore and stroke ratios, the bore size, the 455 will, but I like the small block for performance stuff because the bottom end is much more stout.
Yeah,
the
it's a lighter reciprocating mass, you know, and if it's stronger, then it's definitely
it's a deep skirted block like an FE, right?
Yeah,
but then the big block Buick is like the opposite. It's like 302 Ford, but it eats main bearings because the block is so flexible. And you got to spend a lot of money and time and effort to make that 455 or 400 or 430 or wherever you want to have. You got to make it rigid enough to handle that kind of abuse, or it's got to have tolerances cut into, let's say, like the mains, right? You want to have extra slop on the mains, not diameter wise, but width wise.
Yeah,
so the block or the crank can have opportunity to move around a little bit, right?
That's right.
And your in play is higher, right? Well, when your in play is higher, what happens? It eats the thrust bearing.
That's right.
And so, I mean, there's it's just a lot of things you got to play with to try to dial them in. When you just do a small block and you're going to be cussing about putting the freaking main caps on it because it's so rigid and everything's so tied up around it, you're like, oh, finally I got the main caps on. And then you won't have to change a damn thing for 15 years.
Right?
There's a big difference.
Yeah. You know, mostly all parts and Russ came back with his 318 turbocharged, runs 100 miles an hour in the 8th mile. That's actually going pretty good. And he runs an A99 trans with a low gear. In fact, on my Slant 6, I took a lockup converter out of an A99 transmission, and with the valve body and so on and so forth, and the low ratio first and second. So I have a 276 gear in the rear, but a low ratio first and second, and a lockup converter. And I'm telling you, that's the setup. So yeah, I'm all about that low ratio gear on the 904.
Man, Eric just finally got back to his house. Let's see, that'd be 3 hours difference, right? So it'd be 5:42. So it took him about 40 minutes to get to his house. I don't miss that traffic, man. I do not miss that traffic. That's the kind of stuff that makes you like. It made me question life, right? Like,
right?
What am I doing? What am I doing? I'm spending at least 2-3 hours a day of my life in
In
traffic.
traffic. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny. It's funny you say that, because there was times where I just was like, do I even want to go to work? Because do I want to deal with that traffic, and it
Yeah.
just was ridiculous.
Well, and
So
you
yeah.
were doing the same thing I was doing. See, we didn't have to be at my last job there in the Navy was working on the ships, was fixing the sonars that nobody else could, right? So
Mhm.
they would call me. I was like the fix-it guy, like the Maytag guy, except for it was for Navy sonars, and they were always broke. So I was never asleep at my desk. And we didn't have to be there till like 7:30 or 8 in the morning.
Yep.
And I would show up at 5:30 just to
That's what
beat
I
all the
did.
traffic, right?
Agreed.
And
Yep.
that means I had to get up at 4:30. And then by the time I get off of work, it's like 1600 is the end of our day. So 4 o'clock, right? Well, everybody
Mhm.
else is getting off work at 4 o'clock. So what I would do is I would get off and I would probably go to the movie theater next door and I'd watch a movie for 2 hours, whatever they were playing on base for 2 hours. It cost me like $1 or two. And that would be good for one day because they play that same movie for a week. You wouldn't do that every day.
Oh,
But then I could go home at 6 o'clock and you could actually almost have like a regular drive.
yeah.
But you want to talk about long day? That's 12, 13-hour day every day.
Yeah. It was brutal. When I was living in El Cajon, going all the way down to the 905 when I was at Crower, I left at like 6 something. The drive there was beautiful. It was the drive home. When you got on that 125, 904 crush right there, going to the 8, where 6 lanes of traffic, and
Oh, go down to 3.
yeah, go down to that 3 and then go right underneath that bridge, and then it opens magically back up to 6 again. Yeah,
Yeah, the
that was
choke point.
yeah, that's right. We called it the crush, is what I used to call it. I used to
Crush.
yeah, I was getting to the crush.
Dude, I don't miss any of that thing, any of that
No,
traffic, man.
no.
Especially if you were living in the only affordable place to live when I was out there was where Sheen was at, like El Cajon or Ramona
Yeah,
or whatever. That was the only place that was affordable. That's where
that's
you'd have
right.
like a $400,000 house instead of a $650,000 house, right?
At that time, now you go look at the houses in that area, they're 800, 900,000 now.
Oh,
Right now.
yeah.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. They can have it.
Oh yeah, keep it all. Keep it all, and keep that $7 a gallon gas.
Right.
But
Is it really $7 a gallon out there right
I
now?
don't know what it is, but I
Oh,
know it's way higher than Tennessee, which is what. So when I did my cost analysis for retirement in the Navy,
yeah.
they have you. I think I told you they offered me that job there as permanent, working there fixing all them sonars, and it
Yeah.
was like $110,000 a year, and I'm like, oh man, that's freaking awesome money, And I got my retirement on top of that, and well, hold on a minute, the house is 650 grand.
Wah, wah,
Um,
wah, right.
yeah, how much is it going to be for a house payment? Oh, well, your 110 just turned into whatever you were making anywhere else in the States living in a house that cost 200,000.
Yeah.
So it was like, it was not worth it. And that's why I started doing the cost analysis. And it here in Tennessee was half the cost of living.
That's
Half.
right. It's half. It literally is half the cost.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
I
I'm
agree
like,
with that.
I could thrive there.
Yeah. The only thing that Tennessee does have is that it seems to be a little bit more expensive is insurance. Automotive insurance out here is very, very expensive.
That's probably because there's people that
Uninsured.
drive around without it.
Drive out tags, and Ultima drivers, if you understand that, you're from Memphis area. But yeah, no one's got any license plates. They have these drive out tags, and every car that's like this battleship car that goes swerving all over the road is either a fin, which is an Infinity, or an Ultima, and they're always missing the front and rear bumpers, spare tire. Just it's just amazing, and how they get away with it, no one even cares. It's weird.
Yeah, I just couldn't. The $110,000 a year was very enticing, but then you're looking at,
Yep.
back then was gas $5 a gallon.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was probably twice as much for a gallon of milk, and then food same way. Everything was more expensive, and then they tell you, "Oh, the weather out here is beautiful." Yeah, well, you sit in traffic in the weather like the
That's
whole
all
time.
it is. That's all it is. The weather's beautiful. In fact, that was my biggest problem with moving here. That was my slight bit of depression when I first moved here. Was like, it's dreary, it's this and that, but everything I've ever wanted to do in my life is right here. In
Right.
fact, where I live in Collierville, Tennessee. To get this all running and up and running in these last couple of days, we have a place right over here. I think it's called Patton's. It's a locally owned computer store. amazing. You could walk in there and just, oh, sure, no problem. We'll do it for you right now. You know, it's not like over there where it's like, oh, here's a ticket. Well, maybe we have it done in 3 weeks. It's amazing. So yeah, it's definitely a thriving place. So yeah.
Yeah.
All right. What do we got? Anybody ask some
Well,
questions? Come on, let's get some questions.
Yeah, we need some questions here. I guess we got too far off the topic.
No, that's all right. Oh, the wife and I got married in old San Diego wedding chapel there. And you know that me and the wife actually got married for real at the courthouse.
In San Diego?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes,
me too.
we did. Yeah, we got married right there. And then we didn't really tell anyone, didn't do anything. And then no one really knew. I think it was my grandma and her grandma were the only two that actually knew. And then we had a facade wedding in our backyard at that house, that one house that you came over to.
Oh yeah.
We actually had a wedding, and a friend did the ceremony and stuff, but we're like, oh yeah, we're married. Oh, you know, but we've been married for a while already. So
yeah, well, my wife and I did a traditional Laotian wedding downtown San Diego where she grew up in like Market Street area. And it's like literally downtown area.
That
right?
is, yeah.
And it was actually pretty awesome. And then we went to the courthouse the next morning and got hitched.
Actually, here's a question right for you. SD, please explain the Buick switch pitch torque converter.
Go man. Well, you're in luck. I just happened to have had installed one the other day. So the switch pitch torque converter is a variable vane torque converter. It's normally in every other torque converter, they're fixed. Okay. And even like the newer stuff with an overdrive, they'll just have a clutch that locks it up. Okay, so it'll be more like a brake disc assembly in there that uses fluid or an electronic package to lock it up. The switch pitch was much like the rotors on a jet engine. Okay, and it had the ability to change the pitch on the fly. And so inside the transmission is a solenoid that redirects fluid pressure to the converter and forces a piston to move the variable vanes. And so you can actually have 2 stalls in one torque converter. So they used to call it, originally that was installed in the Dynaflow transmission, which the Dynaflow was a 2-speed, and then it had the 2-speed torque converter. So it'd be like a 4-speed, right? But it really wasn't a 4-speed. It was a 2-speed. Now, and that carried over for the first couple of years, actually the first 3 years of the Turbo 400, which was actually called the Super Turbine 400. And it had the same thing. So it would have been technically a 6-speed automatic. So normally what you have, though, is your 2 stall speeds are generally about 1,000 RPM apart. So if let's say you put a really loose torque converter from a switch pitch ST300 in a Turbo 400 and put it in behind a big block, it's now probably like 2,500, 3,500 stall. But if you use that big block torque converter behind a small block, it might be 1,500 to 2,500, right? That'd be your 2 stall speeds. But they can virtually be switched on and off with just a solenoid in the transmission. So if you wanted to run a toggle switch on your dash, you could go between the 2 stall speeds instantaneously.
Yeah, you actually made a video on your webpage.
I did. It's on Mr. Marauder's Neighborhood.
Yeah.
Shane actually hooked me up with the tranny there.
Yeah.
And I had got a torque converter out of a Rivy, and out of a 67 Buick Rivy, and I put it in my Suburban, and I drove it down the road. The best thing I can say that it's similar to is like a CVT, because it kind of just gets to like, say, 2,600 RPM and just kind of hangs there.
That's right, a torque, yeah, because the way that thing works with the stator, it's basically on the stator the whole time. And watching the video, that was my guess on how it worked, and I was listening to it, I'm like, oh yeah, it was just right in there the whole time. And then you could hear it switch, like, oh wow, that was cool, Yeah.
I just think it's probably the most interesting thing that I've done this year, to be honest with you, that switch pitch, because they were so few and far between. Now, Buick, Oldsmobile, and Pontiac had what they called the Super Turbine 300, which was a 2-speed. And a lot of people confuse them with Power Glides because it's a 2-speed, and a Power Glide was around at the same time. But the Super Turbine 300 is actually I guess you would call it the big brother to the Turbo 350. And it has only 2 speeds, but it had the variable vane torque converter, switch pitch converter in it. And it is shareable amongst the Super Turbine 300 and 400.
Yeah.
But I always kind of wanted to get one of those 300s and see if I could take the pump assembly and everything out and swap it at a Turbo 350 and make a switch pitch Turbo 350.
There was a question up here. Unfinished project asked me, says, what's your thoughts on fan shrouds and stop and go traffic? You know, when it depends. If you're coming off the freeway, I'm all about fan shrouds. Personally, that's just my opinion. I think they direct the flow correctly. That's actually being pulled through. And then especially with a fan clutch. So that way, when you're at speed, it's not taking any power. That's just my opinion. I like fan shrouds, 100%.
Well, Terry CH is asking me, is the turbo Buick 350 happening soon? I would like to say yes, but based on how my life is, I'm still trying to juggle the AHRA. Yeah. Actually, the parts aren't too bad. I got a lot of them ready to go.
That's good.
I'm trying to juggle the remaining parts of the season for the AHRA, and I'm going to fit things in when I can. And that's what's happening now is I got kind of sidetracked with this 300 Buick Mule motor. And I wanted to get a baseline set up to where I knew what kind of horsepower and torque a factory motor would make. And then I can throw 350 Buick heads on it and see if there's really any improvement. Yeah. And since I got sidetracked on that, which was dumb, I probably should have just finished one and then moved on to the next. But
content, it helps with that. That way you can move on, you know.
Well, really what screwed all this up was I had that Give a F Friday 430 and the guy wanted to put a camshaft in it. So now I'm waiting for cam blanks to be like, like I guess molded. I don't know what do they do with those.
Those are cast. Those are cast.
Okay.
Yeah, cast iron. You know what's funny is that, thanks for reminding me. I'll check that out and I'll send you a text and see if we get where the cores are. You know, they were supposed to be in, I believe it was the 25th of last month, but you know how that goes right now.
Yeah, it's just like make ends meet, right?
Yeah. And Mopar Den, thank you for blocking and reporting those naked people things.
Oh, Mopar Den got him?
Yeah, well, at least that's what he says, I think. I don't know. And they're gone.
I blocked them.
Oh, perfect. There you go. Well, no, they came back. They were back.
I didn't see that. Okay. SD's asking, what does it take to install one in a non-switch pitch transmission? Man, I'll tell you what. These questions on this, it's better served if you just went and watched my Mr. Rotter's Neighborhood video on the Turbo 400 install. That Suburban didn't come with a switch pitch. I put it in there. I actually found a guy up in Chicago that makes a box to control it. And if you're wanting to put just the converter and stuff, you're going to need virtually the front half of the switch pitch transmission. So you're probably going to end up with this whole switch pitch transmission first.
Absolutely. Yeah, because the pump's even different. It's got an extra vane in there too. I believe it's solenoid.
But every Turbo 400 is capable of being a switch pitch.
Could be, yeah. Yeah, you'd have to drill. There's extra holes there you'd have to drill too. But yeah.
Actually, there's one that's already drilled. You have to close it up. You have to, so what guys were saying is you take a glass fuse out of a fuse panel of a car.
Oh, that little pin.
Take the metal end off of it.
Yeah.
And you fit it down in the hole and you drill it to the hole size you need. And it's exactly the same size and works just like a restrictor plate or orifice tube. And but then you need the pump, the converter, the solenoid,
everything.
And Shane can list it off because when he took the switch pitch apart, I was like, "Hey, dude, it's a little bit different than a regular Turbo 400." He's like, "Yeah, you're not kidding, man."
Everything was different. Even the pump, as far as the pump gasket, that was even different. We thought, "Oh, it's the same thing." No. In fact, you got to give it up. It wasn't just me; it was everyone at TCI who helped with that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because there's a lot of people that have been there for 20 years, so they could look at it and go, "Oh, I know what that one is."
Oh, gotcha.
As far as gaskets and whatnot, because there was just stuff you don't have.
Well, and see, that transmission would be so few and far between these days. Oh my gosh, it was only made for 3 years.
Yeah, there was actually a guy up there asking about getting a converter rebuilt for one of those, and it was impossible. There's just no way, because you'd have to cut it open and to get all those vanes correctly. I mean, there's probably someone that does it, but it would be very expensive.
It used to be Kenny Bell sold them up through the 90s. Now I don't know who. Oh man, they're back. Or maybe I'm just that far behind.
You're that far behind.
Damn it.
That's the ones I was talking about.
Oh, man. All right. Well, maybe that's why everybody's taking care of them. Huh. All right. But yeah, Kenny Bell used to sell those torque converters.
Yeah.
And that was up through the 90s. And they were selling, they had to be getting them rebuilt out of someplace in California because almost all their parts came out. They used to do stuff locally, right? Like, so Kenny Bell would sell race pistons for a 455. Well, those pistons were made by John's Pistons in Los Angeles, right? And so they tried to use the local, and that used to be the center of all hot rodding. It was Los Angeles, Long Beach, Pomona, Anaheim, and that's about as far down south as it went. I mean, San Diego had its own scene, but it was nothing like LA, right?
Yeah. LA was its own little deal.
Yeah.
Are we going to hold to the 2-hour thing, or what are we doing?
Yeah. So we're going to, I guess we'll wrap it up. This was our first Wednesday night Tech Talk Live back from a brief hiatus. Tony's looking a little different.
Yeah, right. I look different, right? But yeah, this was fun. I enjoyed this, and I'm glad that you guys all came out and supported. Keep telling your friends we're going to do this, and we're going to do on the HRA, and bring out some questions, and I'll have some really cool guests come out. I work with some really high. I'm not going to drop names, but there's a lot of people I can bring in here. We can have guests and that are really good people. So yeah,
and it's right up your alley. So
yes,
if you have tech questions,
massive tech questions.
Yeah, these would be the people to ask. Like,
yes,
yeah, do you know who made the wrist pin for the Chrysler Hemi used in the tank? Yep, we're gonna have them on next month.
Pretty much, yeah. So they're pretty good guys. So yeah, there's and as we get going with bringing parts out, because as we're getting closer to SEMA and stuff, I work in that industry, so we can bring out parts to display and show them what we think. So yeah, it's gonna be really cool. This is gonna be a good thing. I'm happy.
Well, I'm happy too. I appreciate you doing this with me, Shane.
Absolutely. Well,
I couldn't have done it by myself because I'm not this isn't a one-person show. You got to have the interaction between the two hosts, right? And then you got the crowd interacting. I guess it'd be the chat interacting, and it is its own machine, I guess. But you got to do it right. And I unfortunately, Tony didn't want to do it any longer, but fortunately for me, I got Shane to come and help it out, and now Shane's the new Tony, and we're gonna have some fun with it, just like Tony and I did for the longest time. So
yeah, and I just want to straight out. I've said this a few times. I don't claim to know it all. I don't claim to be correct on everything. I do my best, but if I don't know something, I'll say I don't know. I don't have a clue. So yeah, but it's the way it is. Yeah,
well, as the Navy chief used to say, I don't know, but I'll find out for you. Or I know somebody that does, right?
That's correct. Exactly. So, I'll figure it out,
Exactly. But make sure you like and subscribe and share around. I did tag a lot of stuff on this, so hopefully you guys had a good time. Get on over to Slant Daily Garage. Check out Shane's stuff. You can see all my stuff on Mr. Rodder's Neighborhood. And make sure you hit the description. It's going to have links to both channels. It also has a link there to the AHRA eBay store, and you can buy some of our merch, or you can go over to the ahraonline.com and get yourself a membership or anything like that. So
yeah, and I'm going to have some merch up soon, not right away. Some T-shirts, some stickers. I'm not looking to retire on this stuff. I do pretty good with the engineering job that I have, but I like to do this stuff. I'm just socially inept with anything but cars, so that's why I'm here. So
that's my problem is I can't function anywhere else in the world at all. You go to the grocery store and they're like, "Sir, like your card? Does it have nitrous on it?" Right? Like, no. But I just can't function outside this, outside the car community. Yeah. So. All right. Awesome. Well, I guess that's it for the first go round. I mean, we're getting out here. We've been live now for almost 2 hours straight. So I think that's a good heaping helping of some Wednesday night tech talk for y'all. And I guess we'll see you next Wednesday, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Same time, same bat place, same bat channel, right? Is that what
Sweet.
they used to say? Yeah.
Yep. So you're going to have Professor P to be able to pick his brain every week at this weekly show. So
Sure. Bring some
Well,
questions. If
yeah.
you're getting stumped with something, I did a lot of tech, you're having problems with this and that. It's what I do,
Hook, Line, and Fishing wants us to have Tony for a guest.
Sure.
Well, maybe later. We'll see what happens. Because there was no hard
ill will.
feelings. Yeah, there was no ill will between us. It was just Tony was done with the lives. So,
yeah.
We just kind of picked up the ball and ran with it. Tony actually gave us his blessing to do this. So,
yeah. And I was actually texting Tony this afternoon. And actually, I got a converter for him. So, yeah, we're still all good. So, yeah.
All right. So,
right.
I guess we will catch you all next week. Thanks
Sounds
a lot.
good.
Thanks for the support.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Thanks, everyone. Alrighty.